Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Festival of Place the Pineapples in association with the Design Council. This is a unique event where we bring together developer designers and placemakers from across the built environment to share their work as they vie for a coveted golden pineapple for place. We want to celebrate the best in practice to shine a light on those who are delivering the change we want to see in the creation of our urban places. My name is Christine Murray. I'm co-founder and director of the Festival of Place and editor-in-chief of The Developer. We're an independent media company that publishes articles, hosts a podcast, and runs events like this one to help develop and support livable places where citizens thrive. We'll be hearing from four projects shortlisted for the Pineapple for Sustainable Transport, which seeks to recognize active travel and other mobility initiatives, large and small. Each team is going to have just 10 minutes to present. Our judges will then have 10 minutes to ask them questions. I'm charged with keeping us running to time, but we just started 5 minutes late, so I've got my job cut out for me today. So feel free to use the emojis below me to tell us how you're feeling and to encourage our speakers along. It's the happy face underneath me. Thank you very much. And you can use the chat on the right to share your comments, say hello to each other, and help us create a supportive and inclusive atmosphere. You will be meeting the judges after our first presenter when they put their questions forward, but I'm going to take a moment to introduce them now. We're joined today by Kapila Perera, who leads policy impact and communications at the Design Council, and he oversees their work to measure, communicate, and influence the value of design by leading major programs such as the Design Economy 21, which we heard about yesterday, and he's also a trustee at the London Wildlife Trust. We also have Daisy Narayanan, Senior Manager of Placemaking and Mobility at the City of Edinburgh Council, where she leads on delivering a citywide integrated approach to transport and placemaking. She's on the board of Architecture and Design Scotland and a member of the Evidence Group for Scotland's Climate Assembly. And she was on the Active Travel Task Force set up by the Minister for Transport and the Islands, and is a member of the Scottish Transport Awards judging panel. And finally, Kelly Clark is head of NCN at Sustrans. She started out working in road, rail, and logistics operations, and then spent 6 years planning and delivering transport services for the Olympic, Paralympic, and Commonwealth Games. And now she's driven to help us stop burning so much diesel by creating places that allow people to walk and cycle for everyday journeys. So it's time for our first project. We are going to hear about an initiative that was started during the COVID crisis. In fact, both of our first projects are about initiatives that have started during the pandemic, and it has been a time of incredible active transport initiatives and incredible initiatives. So that is Connecting Leeds COVID Response, which is going to be presented by Mike Saunders and Yvonne Roberts. So if you guys want to turn your cameras and microphones on and join me.
Hi.
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 Yvonne, we can hear you perfectly.
Excellent.
Do you want to try, can you switch your camera on?
Sorry, I can't. I've had real technical problems. I don't have a camera on my desktop at home, so apologies.
That's fine. We hear you beautifully.
Fantastic.
So I'll let you guys share your presentation, and then you'll have 10 minutes. Mike, that looks good. Just need the full screen.
Just going full screen.
Excellent. Perfect.
There we go.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Away you go.
Thank you. So I'm really excited today to present the collaboration between Commonplace and Leeds City Council to create a big conversation with Leeds residents, which is helping to shape the city's aspiration to become a place where you don't need to own a car. I'm Mike Saunders. I'm CEO of Commonplace, and I'm delighted to hand over to Yvonne Roberts, who is the Connecting Leeds project manager, and she's going to tell you a bit about the vision. Yvonne.
Hi, thank you. Hi, I'm Yvonne Roberts, project manager for Leeds City Council. I lead on the comms, engagement and consultation for the Connecting Leeds programme. Over the last 4 years, we've been working in collaboration to conduct one of the biggest transport conversations in Leeds to help understand what's important to the people of Leeds. So we had an initial conversation 4 years ago where we provided information for people of Leeds to allow us to get feedback from them. That has resulted in a new and refreshed vision for Leeds, our new Connecting Leeds transport strategy. That's now been developed, and that takes in for us to be able to achieve our vision to respond to the climate emergency declaration, whilst also ensuring that we have inclusive growth and also improve health and well-being across the city for Leeds. Next slide, please. So the vision sets out for Leeds a city where you don't need a car. This has been assisted by identifying 6 big moves, what we call in Leeds our big moves. To achieve this, oh, can you hear me? The presentation's disappeared. So we want to achieve our vision and objectives, which are to tackle climate change, deliver inclusive growth and improve health and well-being. So our 6 moves are decarbonising transport, creating healthier streets, spaces and communities, transforming the city centre, enhancing public transport, new mobility solutions and delivering mass transit system in Leeds. Okay, Mike, back over to you for the next slide.
Thank you. Okay, can you still see our presentation, judges?
No,
I know.
the slide's disappeared.
Here, do you want to try that again? Sorry.
I'll try and Okay, I'm going to try resharing it and see if that
Okay,
works.
I'm not sure where it went, but
Apologies.
there's little ghosts in the system today. I don't know why.
We've certainly got gremlins.
I know it's not the 13th today, is it? No, it's the 15th. It's Thursday the 15th. There's no suspicions around the 15th, is there? I don't think so.
Okay.
It's beautiful. The slide looks beautiful.
Fantastic. So the Leeds team had already been using Commonplace for several years with exceptional response rates, and they decided to extend its use to deliver the quality and scale of engagement that they needed for this programme. So from March through December last year, they used the special COVID-adapted Commonplace community heat map, which you can see here, to create a conversation with the people of Leeds about their transport needs during the pandemic. Local people shared recommendations for making streets better for walking and cycling and for maintaining social distancing. And this highlighted things like dangerous pinch points, location of cycle routes, and ideas for creating quieter residential streets. In total, there were 29,000 such public contributions during this period. Many of them related to walking and cycling, and 71% of respondents supported reducing traffic speed or volume to keep those walking and social distancing safe. And every one of them has helped inform the programme of improvements on key routes around the city, which is now being delivered. So one of the outcomes of this unprecedented scale of engagement has been the council's decision to make some of the temporary interventions permanent, including building of an additional 100 kilometres of cycle paths, the creation of several low traffic neighbourhoods, as well as many other features around the city. And the engagement has absolutely not just been online. A recent accessible travel event held in the city centre provided an opportunity for disabled networks and colleagues to safely join with colleagues from the City Council on the new improved Cookridge Street and Hedgerow. The event was a partnership event hosted by Connecting Leeds to raise awareness of the schemes that have been delivered and the benefits particularly to people with disabilities who are less confident in returning to the city. And the fact that these changes have been shaped by the community via the Commonplace platform has been a really important part of its success, because residents have been able to identify and prioritise what they think should be changed. There's a much greater community ownership and buy-in to the whole scheme. In terms of what that actually looks like, well, if you were in Leeds City Centre right now, you'd see a lot of change happening. What you can see here is Hedgerow and Westgate. the team's really reducing the dominance of the highway overhead. It's widening footpaths, putting in place dedicated cycle facilities, and making it much more efficient for the buses. Previously, actually, buses that travelled through had issues with being blocked by other buses. So this new revised layout will really help improve the flow of buses as well as other street users throughout the city. Yvonne, back to you.
Thank you. So this is another example in Leeds, one of the main routes out of Leeds along the A660 through Hadley, where we've introduced the Wand and Ork as one of those temporary arrangements. Hopefully it will become a permanent arrangement soon. And the other image there, again, is the city centre, where we had the event recently where we invited networks, groups from disability groups into the city, showing them the wider pavement, so less crowding, and it's easier for people to find their way around. Lots of new seating, providing places to rest, loading bays which can be used for dropping off and picking up by private hire, new talking bus stops, new bus flags, which obviously makes it easier for people to find the bus information, bus priority lanes, and easier to navigate paving and cycle and crossing for people, particularly with disabilities. We've had a real focus on accessibility as people hopefully return back to the city. Next slide, please. Sorry, thank you. We've shared a lot of data around the network navigations, the network on the streets, and one of the big things that we've been able to do is to create a tracker of all the carbon savings across the programmes, which have included the use of electric fleet for construction, reusing surplus materials, landscaping of 46,000 trees just on one of the programmes. This has resulted in an equivalent saving of £5 million of carbon savings and equates to a reduction of 13.4 million car trips that we've managed to save. The picture here also shows the low traffic neighbourhoods in Chapeltown that we've put into place. And we had a focus group with residents just last week, and some of the feedback was, although not easy to implement, but the feedback has been really positive in terms of people feeling so much safer in their environment with less speeding cars. We've turned people around to supporting the scheme in an area, as I said, where there's been a lot of speeding drivers and the area being used as a rat run. People have said it just makes for a much more pleasant environment. They feel safer going out, and it obviously allows for the children to play out on the streets that they wouldn't have been able to previously. And also by doing this, we're reducing the noise pollution and stopping people parking outside of houses and causing, conflict in some of these streets. So it's really positive news for us that we've been able to turn around the hearts and minds of some of the communities in Leeds that was quite negative when we were doing the implementation. That was the end of the presentation, Mike.
Fantastic. Well, if I can welcome you back to the stage, I'm going to invite our judges now to turn on their cameras and their microphones. And first, I'm going to invite Kapila. Kapila, do you have any questions about the Connecting Leeds program?
Yeah, so I just want to say I really love the ambition and the kind of quick and kind of transformative change that you kind of outlined. It's really impressive. Actually, I have two questions that came to mind. I guess with that engagement process, particularly coming through Commonplace, I understand obviously it gets a lot of micro level data, but going through that process, was there a lot of things that you learned that you just weren't aware of, or you'd have, if you went through your own plans, you wouldn't have done? It'd just be interesting in any sort of themes that came out from that learning and that engagement. And the second question is, I guess, on implementation and I guess tracking that change in sustainable transport. So I'd be interested to know if you've got if you know they're going to uptake in sustainable travel from already, and if you have kind of plans to measure that over time. Thanks.
Sure.
Yvonne, would you like to start? And then
Yeah,
I can chip in after.
So in terms of the learning, yes, we did learn a lot. We always, obviously in transport and highways, do a lot of modelling anyway. But what the heat map particularly gave us was that real kind of feedback from people that we wouldn't necessarily have got that information from. So that thing about it being safer streets, rat running that we might not necessarily be aware of, and the little nuances in particular communities. Leeds is a really big city, and each community, you know, some areas are quite transient, so it was really good to get a good feel for what the local people really want to see, and the interventions that we could put in quickly, particularly with the COVID response last year. So the COVID response really accelerated some of that thinking that we were already wanting to do. In terms of tracking, we are tracking, and we have got kind of safer streets. I don't know what they call them, doing audits on the streets, particularly again where we've implemented those temporary interventions, because we want to learn from those interventions to make them permanent. And it might not be in the exact format that we've implemented them. We want to review them and make sure again that with that real community engagement and interface, that it's what the people that live there actually want to see in their local community. So we might have a view about that, but it's the people of Leeds that really want to shape the implementation of the schemes that we're putting in. Obviously, Commonplace has allowed us to do that. And you had another point, and I didn't write down what your other.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm gonna ping now, but we'll come back to Kapila if we have time. But if, Kelly, would you like to come in and share your thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Christine, and thank you very much for your presentation. I've got, I suppose, one main question. You mentioned the carbon savings are, the impressive carbon savings are kind of, you know, one of the key figures you mentioned was eradicating 13.4 million car trips, which is obviously the biggie in terms of, you know, improving air quality, improving livability of neighbourhoods and safety and everything. I'd just like to understand kind of where that 13.4 million, you know, what kind of trips were are included in that, and you know how was such kind of a large number achieved?
So some of our technical people, not me, have put together a tracker of all the things that we've been doing. So all those things that I've mentioned around using electric cars during construction, the trees that we've planted, the additional cycling infrastructure, if we project people's bus usage, if you take COVID out of the situation, the projections of bus patronage that we wanted to increase, if we put all that together into, somebody has created like a tracker that then processes that into all the savings that we've made, and that's where that figure has come from. We can share that with people. It's we didn't have it on the slide today because there's a lot of data behind that information.
I'm going to bring you in now, Daisy, if you would like to quiz Mike and Yvonne now.
Thank you. And yeah, like the other judges, thank you so much for that presentation, and also for keeping calm through all the tech gremlins. I think that's amazing how you just kind of cracked on. Brilliant. I'd just like to pick up a couple of points. I really like your focus on inclusion and, you know, inclusive transport that you mentioned. It would be good to understand a little bit more about how you've captured diverse voices as part of the consultation and how that's kind of informed your thinking going forward. And I suppose leading on from that point is, again, looking ahead, how you are going to look at maybe more, you know, this informs how the design of your future places could look like. So bringing the design elements and placemaking elements, is that something that's been considered as part of this very quick response to COVID?
Yeah, definitely. So Commonplace helps us with that because we do have obviously the equality data behind the registration process to get onto Commonplace, but also we use in Leeds a voluntary organisation, Leeds Involving People, as one of our advocates, and they have really wide networks. So they are very much on the ground, as it were, when we're doing our engagement and consultations, to go out and speak to people. So, which has been really useful again during COVID, because we've not necessarily been able to do that with our council policies. But Leeds Involving People are a charity and very much understand local communities and are involved in a variety of different ways to make sure that we are inclusive. And we also, over the last 4 years, particularly as we've grown as a team, we've built up those really good relationships with all those different groups and forums, and we're regular attendees at those meetings, and just keep up to date with what we are doing, but also getting feedback from people, because one of the most important things about all this process is getting the feedback for what people think about what the implementations that we are doing. So it's not just, there you go, here's a scheme and off you go. We do want to get feedback, and if there's any changes that we can make to improve the schemes, then obviously we do take all of that into consideration.
And if I could just add to that in terms of the age groups, which is another bit of data that we collected, the peak, the largest number of responses came from the 35 to 40 age group, and the next largest was the age group just younger than that, 25 to 35, and those are often another group of unheard respondents in these kind of conversations.
Well, I just want to thank you both for sharing that with us and with the judges today. That was really great to have that little visit to Leeds, and I'm glad you guys battled through and were able to show that to us. There's some emoji love for you. We're now going to take another little journey, but not too far away. We're going to go to CYCLE42 in Merton, which is presented by Matt Griffiths-Rimmer from Hadley Property Group. So welcome, Matt.
How you doing, Christine?
Great. It's really good to see you here. So I'll stay with you as you get ready to go. But I know that we're excited about these projects that really came out of the pandemic. It's always hopeful to hear about new initiatives that were kind of spurred on by less than ideal circumstances, if we can put it that way.
Okay, great. Well, thanks very much for having me. Is that full screen now?
It is full screen. I'm just waiting to see if the slide appears, because we just see a black square.
Oh dear. Any joy? No?
No, maybe give that another try. Just if you share your home page instead of sharing the window, that can sometimes help.
Okay, right. Yeah.
Your desktop, if you share your desktop.
Any good? Or just black screen again?
It's perfect. There you go. Off you go.
Okay, cool. So yeah, thanks very much for having me. I'm here to talk about CYCLE42, which is a not-for-profit sustainable transport hub, and it's at our Station Road site, which is in Merton. And I guess it's something that's representative of our overall approach to sustainable transport and active travel. It's just something that sits right across all of the schemes. For those of you who don't know anything about us, we are a mixed-use regeneration specialist. We have around 3,000 homes in our planning and delivery pipeline, and the vast majority of our work is about delivering places in partnership. So whether that's informal joint ventures with organisations like the GLA, with local authorities, housing associations, or with looser sort of cross-sector partnership frameworks, which CYCLE42 is a pretty good example of. So, as I mentioned, active travel and sustainable transport is pretty key to the way that we approach development in general. So there's a lot of cyclists in the office, and we have a long-standing partnership with Brompton that sees their docs go into all of our schemes well ahead of completion dates. So this is to enable local residents to use them and for site workers to use them as well. It's also a key part of the consultation process. So Brompton Bike Hire offer reduced rates to all the residents who are local to our schemes, and we share those same benefits with hard to reach groups who don't necessarily have access to cycling. This brings people to the site, physically to the site and to the dock, and then we're able to keep people informed of what's going on in the planning and design process with video screens that are on the side of the dock and with QR codes which link to our consultation material. So a little bit about the site. And the scheme. There's 116 homes, 40% of which are affordable housing. It's a riverside development which really sort of seeks to celebrate its proximity to the River Wandle, which runs right next to the site. Along that sort of the public realm there's a lot of new seating, there's a lot of repair work and upkeep along the section of the river path. There's also a new pedestrian bridge which you can see in the top left there, which links the site to the Wandle Trail, which is it's a really beautiful path which runs through much of Merton and Wandsworth. So our early consultation showed a lot of strong support for the linking of cycling into the scheme. It brought a lot of attention from local groups in Merton who were focused on active travel, who just kind of shared a real love of cycling and wanted to promote that in the community. In the completed scheme, there is a large cycle cafe and repair facility, which opens out onto the river path. As well as Brompton, who I mentioned already, there's a number of other cycle and scooter options there as well. So these are all going to be provided at affordable levels for both residents of the development, but also the residents of Collieswood local. So that's cargo bikes, e-bikes, scooters, no electric scooters, because we all know that that's not very popular yet. There's also a zero emissions car club as part of the scheme. So it's really about promoting shared mobility as like a culture of sharing and moving people away from that need for ownership. But obviously this is all a couple of years away, and so the point of the presentation is to really talk about the site now and what's going on there. It's a light industrial building that used to house a soft play company, but then when lockdown hit, that company unfortunately went under, and so we were left with an empty space. So we started talking with neighbours and with charities who share this focus on sustainability and sustainable transport in particular. And we partnered with our friends who are developing a site just up the road, Clarion Housing, who are developing the High Path estate, which is just a few minutes away. Our first two phone calls were to the Bike Project and to Brompton Bike Home. So the Bike Project are a South London charity who provide cycles for asylum seekers who have no way of travelling around when they arrive in the UK. And they also provide training to the same refugees to encourage community interaction and to really just try and offer a trade. So they are running training programs from the site. They also sell donated bikes, which have been repaired at affordable rates for the local community. Brompton, who throughout lockdown have been running their Wheels for Heroes campaign, which provides bikes to NHS workers, then donated a number of bikes to us, for us to share with the community for use for free. So it's a program that offers Bromptons for 90 days free of charge. They're first offered to local key workers and to residents in affordable housing, but this is about a culture of enabling and encouraging. So if you're not a key worker, we weren't going to turn you away. So the residents then get the Brompton for 90 days, and then the bikes that the Bike Project are repairing on the site are then made available at a subsidised rate, with Hadley kind of donating part of the cost of those bikes to help enable the purchase. There's obviously more room at the site for more than just this offering too. And so there's another 3 charities who are all operating from there as well. You've got the Dons Local Action Group, who upcycle and distribute furniture to those people who need it in the area. Community Champions are a sustainability-focused charity, which has installed pallet gardens, recycled clothing, that kind of thing. And there's also Care for Calais, who run a food bank from the site as well. So it's not exclusively an active travel hub, but there is a focus on sustainability and social sustainability, not just environmental. Some of the literature that we produced just to encourage people to take the bikes. We did our promotion in local newspapers, letter drops, social media. We used campaigns on websites like Spotify to try and make sure that we're reaching young people as well in the area who don't necessarily have any access to cycles. So anyone that takes a bike also gets helmet, lanyards, information services, wayfinding on different cycle routes around the area, along the river, etc. And also obviously training for people on how to fold and use the bikes, etc. In terms of the impact, 100% of the people said that they would continue cycling. 80% of anyone that's used it so far has quoted that their mental and physical health improved within a couple of weeks. Half of the residents went out more than 3 times a week. I mean, there's quite a lot in terms of impact quotes, etc. But I won't go too far into it. How long have I got, Christine? Am I nearly done?
Yep, you're nearly done. You've got about 2 minutes.
Okay, cool. Well, look, it's okay. I can close off there anyway, because thank you very much for listening. Hopefully you can see what we're trying to do down here in Collier's Wood. I know that this perhaps isn't the most technical presentation, but it does say a little bit about what a difference sustainable transport can make to people's lives, and just about how much tangible social value is created by just bringing together sort of like-minded people under one roof. So yeah, thanks for listening. If anyone's got any recommendations for anything else that we could think about including as part of the use, this is an evolving project, and there's always room for more ideas. So yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you. So if you want to stop sharing, that's right, and join the stage, and I'll invite our judges to now join you. But it's really great to hear about that health and well-being impact. And also I was surprised by the frequent use of the residents that you described. It's quite striking. So Kelly, over to you first. Would you like to share your thoughts?
Thanks, Christine, and thanks, guys, for your presentation. I must declare the Wandle Trail is one of the routes in London that I have custodianship for, from a Sustrans kind of national cycle network point of view. So it's definitely a local gem. But also one of the things about those kind of off-road routes is they're only one part of the jigsaw. Another part of the jigsaw is very much kind of places like that hub where people can kind of get the kit and access knowledge. But another big part of the jigsaw is I guess the local road network, and how big developments like yours kind of fit into that. So I guess my question is kind of as a large development that'll be kind of coming on stream in the next few years, to what extent have you been involved in, either through this project or as part of that development, in improving the sustainable transport kind of as how that development kind of interacts with local options and potential like COVID response things? So if there have been COVID response schemes like low traffic neighbourhoods, to what extent has the project been involved in those?
So we've had a lot of local engagement, to be honest. The local ward members have been great. I mean, normally we're on the back foot when we're doing fairly dense development in London and talking to local ward members. But I think seeing the activation of the space has really brought out quite a lot of local support and knowledge, which has really given us quite a lot of just access to more and more information. We always commission sort of sustainable transport consultants to I mean, across all of our schemes really. We try and create a hub in each of them. I'm just trying to think what I've got Alex with me who's working on the scheme. Is there anything else that I'm missing in terms of the technical consultation kind of stuff?
No, I don't think so. I think the main part is we've obviously established, as you just said, a sustainable transport hub on site, which focuses on e-scooters, e-bikes, cycles, and also Brompton High Dock, and also looking at reducing car parking where possible, but providing electronic car park spaces and vehicles as well.
I'm not sure if I mentioned the sort of zero emissions car club aspect of it as well. Does that answer your question, Kelly? I'm just trying to think if there's anything more technical that I can try and get. I think
it sounds like Kelly's just talking about linking in with wider initiatives beyond your site. So I guess
and basically how you're helping to kind of improve the local infrastructure, I guess, for the residents of your site for the project.
Yeah, and only in so much as I guess we've been working with the council to try and promote various sort of wayfinding cycling solutions. So that the council have got a very sort of progressive regen team who've helped us push all that information out as well.
So now I think you've answered it. So I'm going to pass now to Daisy and ask if you'd like to come.
Thank you again. Fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. I loved the impact story. The 100% of people who said they would continue to cycle. Some brilliant numbers there. So fantastic. My question, I suppose, is it touches on the zero emission vehicles. So in terms of active travel, broadening, I know you focused on cycling here, but in terms of walking and providing the the best possible walking experience, and it'd be good to understand a bit more about what options are being provided within the development. So yeah, just the zero emission, the mobility hubs, I think you mentioned. would be good.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, there's a mobility hub that will be that will take the form of a cycle cafe and sort of co-working space. That will just alongside that. There's kind of the water fountains and the wayfinding solutions, etc. Because it's so close to the river, we're actually installing a pedestrian bridge as well, so you can get across from that river path onto the scheme and into the public realm there. Yeah, it's just about stitching it right through. I mean, we worked with Gort Scott and Fabric on this project. So really good design teams, and all cyclists as well. So it's kind of like, yeah, in terms of the walking, the river path is probably the best. I mean, connectivity of the site is excellent, whereas before it was just a kind of closed off light industrial shell. But now there's routes right through north, south, and east and west actually.
Excellent.
Kapila, come and join me. I'd like to invite you to the stage.
Thanks, and thanks, Matt, for the presentation. I thought it was a really interesting way you kind of used that space. And you talked about obviously being a pop-up space and obviously a kind of a time-limited thing. I was interested just to know if you think there will be any kind of future kind of connections between those groups that you've set up. I mean, you talked about them, like the people cycling more in the future, but did you think there's kind of connections between those charities and also between the wider community that might kind of last longer than this kind of pop-up space?
Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, to be honest, all of our meanwhile stuff has a permanent outcome at the end of it. Do you know what I mean? There's not really much point in just sort of throwing it in there, and that's why we thought that the sort of the cycle repair facility and the cafe that can all come forward. But with Clarion also redeveloping just up the road as well, we share a little bit of resource with those guys, and theirs is also a fairly long-term regeneration project, and so we'd be hopeful that there'd also be some space come forward in that scheme should people need to keep it. I guess it's just about making sure that we keep talking to our partners and that we can kind of, if people need to leave that space because it's been demolished, there's something else in the area. But yeah, we would continue to support and try and enable that for years to come. Yeah.
That's really good to hear. We have time for a quick follow-up question from the judges. We've got a couple more minutes on the clock. If somebody would like to come in.
Could I jump in?
Of course.
That's all right. Yeah, just a quick question about the climate action aspect of what we're doing. Has that been considered in terms of carbon emissions and the impact that you're having or this project is having on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a car-free scheme, as all of our London developments are. To be honest, that's been a driver for years. In terms of climate action, I mean, we have a fairly cohesive sustainability policy that fits right across our approach. So although this really focuses on social sustainability, our approach to our environmental sustainability would also run through the design of the completed scheme as well. So whether that's green roofs or biodiversity net gains, that kind of thing. Yeah, we try and push people onto wheels and feet rather than sitting in cars. But yeah, it's something that just runs like a thread throughout all of our work, to be honest.
Brilliant. Well, it's always refreshing to hear about climate running like a thread through everything that you do. So I think that's really essential and really wonderful to hear about your project and how you managed to accelerate it. And it's really great to hear about that cross collaboration across several partners too, which I think is really speaks to the kind of spirit that we want to retain of breaking down silos between groups and, seemingly competitors, teaming up to do something good and reaching out to third sector organizations as well. Yeah, so thanks very much. Go ahead.
I was going to say thanks for having me. Really appreciate coming on and talking about it.
Great. Well, Matt, I'm going to send you back into the column, and I'm just going to tell our audience that we are now going to take a quick comfort break. So we'll be back here right at 3 o'clock for our next two presentations. So feel free to join a table in this lounge as you grab a cuppa or glass of water or whatever your favorite beverage is this time of day. And you can join one of the tables in the lounge and say hello to some of the other people here. We will be back here right at 3 o'clock for 2 more projects shortlisted for the Pineapple for Sustainable Transport. So thanks very much. See you